Hello, I wanted to take a few minutes to update my Cities videos with the reasons why I left Cities XL and was very happy to jump headfirst into Cities Skylines upon its release. While this may come across as a bit of a rant, that's not really the intent. I invested a fair amount of time into Cities XL and several versions of that game, and I felt a little bit like I was left hanging, as I know a couple other users were as well. If you've seen any of my previous XL videos, there's little hiding to how much I enjoyed the game when it initially released. It filled a much needed hole in the market, and its only real competition was the aging SimCity 4. While mods allow amazing things to happen in SimCity 4, bugs and the immense time investment it can take to make those mod-assisted creations can be pretty prohibitive. It was very easy to jump into Cities XL and whip up a pretty decent city, and one that looked pretty good. They did a lot of things right with the financials and the base management, and even the trading between cities. However, the game was more on the shallow side with little soul that those who recall the heyday of SimCity will easily understand what I mean by that. Cities XL was cheap, especially when it was on sale, and so I didn't really feel like I was being shortchanged on any of those features, considering that it was trying to reopen a niche which the market said was closed. I do believe that XL's success, be it small, helped show that there was a market and this type of a game was desired, thus opening the path for SimCity 5 and others to come in. But I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. Rewinding to the first XL game, it was missing a lot of the features that even the introduction video led players to expect: trains, boats, buses, other modes of transportation, and management for your city. However, since it sold well, it was followed up a year later with another version, XL 2011. As an owner of the game, I was offered it with a discount. I used some other funds from my Steam wallet and I got it pretty dirt cheap. I installed it and was quite excited, expecting some good new content. Unfortunately, I was greeted with almost nothing new. A few minor things such as bus lines, which were not very intuitive and could be somewhat difficult to manage, maintain, and work with. They added some custom building sets, such as the beach houses, medieval sets, and so on. While neat, those were better for building small portions of the city, such as a Renaissance park or something like that. The rest of the buildings that grew, as you could call it, were the same as the previous version. Likewise, the tile design of the building zones made it less fun to delve away from the grid patterns because you could end up with wasted space. Initially, I liked the tiles. They worked well. It made it easy to ensure that you would have at least a building in some space instead of a one-by-one block that couldn't be used. However, it made it really easy to fall back into a grid-like pattern, so your cities didn't always look customized. They didn't always look as fresh or unique or as molded by the terrain as real cities tend to. After a while, this left me feeling that the game was a bit stale. Another year passed and Cities XL 2012 came out, and I just couldn't bring myself to buy it at launch. During a holiday sale, I got it cheap and decided to take a look at it firsthand versus what I'd seen in YouTube videos. Again, to my dismay, nothing had really changed. They claimed lots of buildings and such, but they were the same core buildings. A few new ones here and there, but most of the new buildings were the smaller custom ones, those little sets. The maps themselves were always beautiful and well done, and while maps are always welcomed, the building sets for the snow maps were just like the others, limited. However, 3 years and 3 releases on, with the same bugs, performance issues, and more still being prevalent, what were they doing with their earnings? I knew from online postings that I wasn't the only one asking these questions.
What sort of improvements have been made in NCOM OS 12?
This year we put a 12 on the box.
Sadly, that's an accurate assessment. By now, I had a hex-core CPU and my GPU was again fairly top of the line, as was my RAM. Yet the game ran terrible. After creating a good-sized city, the game was choppy. And it's not very difficult to get a big city. It's the point of the game, really. A medium city lowered draw distances to a third of my visible range. Massive lag when zoomed out to a city block or more until you are so high up that they don't really have anything to draw anymore. No vehicles, no buildings, everything fades into the background. As a result, I started seeing crashes and was also getting frustrated with the UI. The universal symbol for saving is a floppy disk. I decided to build one last city to review these concerns and say goodbye to the game. I had a good day of building, and after about 3 hours had put a lot of neat things into a city to show off what it can do, and which would also highlight what it could not do. About that time, my wife came home and needed help with something. I quickly saved, or so I thought, only realizing as I clicked OK that the disk icon was the load, not the save disk. So I had just loaded back to the original save, so none of my quick saves were going to be captured, and lost 3 hours of building this city. A few weeks later, I decided to try again. I put about an hour in to recreate what I had, which of course is never as good, but I got it in and saved. Unfortunately, during the saving process, I experienced a game crash, lost all of my work. A couple weeks later, I said I'd give it another shot. This time it saved, and that was great. I logged in the next day to try and finish it out, but the save file had been corrupted somehow. No other games on my computer, no other files, nothing else was having any problems, so it was just isolated to Cities XL. So I gave up. I was frustrated, I was annoyed, and I just uninstalled the game. A little while later, the rumblings of SimCity 5 started to come to fruition. We were seeing content, we were seeing some information, but some of that information was a little bit worrisome. I was initially very excited that Maxis would be bringing in another game. They pretty much wrote the book on the genre itself, so why would theirs not be good? Unfortunately, it seems like nobody remembered what made SimCity 1 through 4 amazing, so we kind of can guess how well the launch of that game went, and by the time they got on track, it was way beyond too late to recover that game. Fast forward a few years more, and we hear rumblings of Cities XXL. Yeah, that sounds interesting. Let's take a look. Maybe by now they've actually fixed something. Pull up a couple YouTube reviews from early beta tests and pre-release games. Wow. The game's the exact same as 2012. No changes. I'm seeing the same buildings that were launched in 2010. There's no difference to the game at all. None. It's just larger. And even in the video that I first watched, the guy was calling out performance issues. Nothing had been changed. About the same time, though, I'd also heard rumblings of a game called Cities Skylines. And about 5 minutes of watching the first videos, I was completely sold. I was really excited about the game and the possibilities. Now, Cities in Motion, also made by the same developers, was a good game, but it just wasn't for me. It was more focused on the infrastructure side of things and managing the movement of people through the cities, which is neat, but I want the full experience. I held out on buying Cities Skylines until just a couple months before release. I wanted to see more content. And as more came out showing what the game could do, the involvement of the creators, as well as the open community offerings such as mods and assets, I was completely done. I pre-ordered the game at that moment and highly looked forward to its release. Once Skylines came out, almost everything I wanted and was missing from XL was there. Cities Skylines became the best successor to SimCity 4 I've yet seen. While some of the heart is still missing, the city has soul. It feels alive. There's been great updates from the devs as far as downloadable content. They've just continued to add more to the game, making it great. And coming up shortly, there's yet more downloadable content that continues to make the game more and more fun. There's a fantastic modding community keeping the game flush with new content, new options, new ways of making your city unique and vibrant. And that doesn't even go into mention the thousands of potential assets that you can add to your city. Cars, rail options. There's just so much that you can add to the game to make it custom, to make it yours, to build it the way you want to build it, really. Skylines also, coming from the developers who knew how to make an infrastructure services style game, you really get a chance to build your city and fix it. You get to see as an area grows, the traffic becomes a problem, and you can actually go in and fix it through great updates. It's just a wonderful game. And I played more of Cities Skylines in its first few months of release than I really had in years of playing Cities XL. If you love city management, city builders, and infrastructure design, you really owe it to yourself to play Skylines, if you haven't already. That's not to say it's perfect. Every update seems to break almost all of the mods, requiring a lot of troubleshooting to get everything going again, and assets can break here and there when they're not updated or abandoned. But the game straight out of the box is still amazing and works well. Well, I hope that didn't come across as too much of a complaining rant, but I tried to build a picture of why I left Cities XL. It started with a lot of good potential, but the developers just showed that they're in it for the money and not really the content. You can have both in this instance, as Cities Skylines proves. I thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.